Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answer Yes podcast. Thank you for tuning in. It is a gloomy, wet, almost spring day here in Montana. We're enjoying the mud and the grit out there, taking care of the animals. So thank you for all your comments. Thank you for all the purchases of my new book that came out a few weeks ago, The Freedom to Say Yes. I really appreciate the comments and all the support. Sometimes you wonder if anybody's paying attention, and then all of a sudden they buy something from you and you realize they were. So with that being said, today I have Sean Doyle on the line. Good morning, good afternoon. How's things going for you?
Incredible. Another lonely author wondering if anybody cares. But yeah. No, it's great. Having a great day. And in fact, in the Southeast, I regret to tell you that it is robin's egg, blue skies, warm sun, high 60s. You're just in the wrong part of the country, Jim.
Just today, that is. People ask me, can you handle the cold out there? I said, it builds grit and character, and it keeps the weak away. So I'm okay with it.
Did you just call me weak? I think you just called me weak. Wow.
Well, we got a growing population problem out here. I haven't been here that long, but I think I know why they love it here so much. But that's all besides the fact. I love that you've reached out to us, or your team's reached out to us. I read your bio. What a great background and value that you bring in the business world. But before we dig into some of that, can you give us some of your personal background, where you grew up and why you got into business and some of the things that happened along the way?
Oh, you mean like the stuff that my mother cares about and nobody really else does?
Well, she's going to listen.
Oh, that's true. Hi, Mom. She'll actually like that. I'm a Yankee, grew up in the Northeast, bounced around the country. My father was really good at going into colleges and flipping their enrollment problems. So I've got a lot of exposure. And if anybody ever asked me, I think one of the greatest things my parents taught me was a broad view and the ability to see. Mm-hmm. Miss Archer, my art teacher in junior high, taught me how to see light. So if you can combine seeing light and broad exposure, a pretty interesting life, and ended up coming to the South for college, because doesn't everybody come to Alabama for higher ed?
Why
it's a
not?
higher ed center. We actually do have some incredible higher ed here, and we have just stayed here. I love the South, and it's not gritty and muddy, but we've got our own issues. Seemingly, we've got more self-esteem issues than we have real problems. But, it's an incredible place, and it's the greatest secret. Birmingham, Alabama is astonishing. Whatever image just jumped into your mind, just shed it, push it aside. It's a dynamic place with a lot of high tech, incredible healthcare, research, amazing restaurant culture. According to the James Beard Society, the best restaurant in America is in Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow. So what's it called? What is it?
Highlands Bar and Grill. It's still shut down from COVID, but they've got 3 sister restaurants that are opening back up. It's an incredible place. So don't come here if you don't want to move.
Yeah,
you're going to love it.
What's interesting that you say that. One of the things that I've noticed with my guests and some of my correspondence with people is because of COVID, people they got out a little bit further than what they might normally go. We've seen some new people show up in Montana in the middle of winter going, wow, this place isn't so bad. Sounds like some people are stretching their legs down to Alabama.
One of my new neighbors is a fellow from Atlanta that decided he could work anywhere and got out of the big city. So common theme, common thread. So Zoom towns, I think they're called technically.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. We live in a wonderful country with so many great assets from one end to the other. And it's neat to hear what people are discovering around this beautiful country.
So, Jim, the last time I was in your neck of the woods, my daughter was, 13, 14 years old. And we took her on this trip, flew to Denver, rented an RV, and then got up out of the city and off the Front Range and drove in the plateau north, made it all the way up into Wyoming, Montana, and did a loop. And we had an incredible journey, but part of the journey was a lesson that you're pointing to. It's great. We flew, and we didn't see anything of America. Mm-hmm. Then we drove, we saw a little more of America. And then we walked, and we really started seeing America. And then the last journey was this hike, this nature guide hike with the Forest Service ranger. And the hike, it was 2 hours long, and we went 100 yards. 100 yards.
Wow.
What could you do possibly for 2 hours? It was all that stuff you walk past when you're out walking.
Yeah.
And she made us slow down and look and see. And it's an incredible lesson of life, right? When you slow down and look and see and have a guide that can help you see, it's incredible. We're surrounded by fascinating things. It's just astonishing.
I'd interviewed somebody and said, there's a percentage of Americans or people in the world that never set foot on actual soil, on dirt itself. Now, I just came out of the dirt swamplands, and it's hard to believe that. But the reality is, you live in New York City or something, you might not ever touch dirt.
I live near the Great Smoky Mountains, which is the only national park in America that has no entrance fee, and that was the deal that was cut for that land. Which puts an incredible economic pressure on the Smokies. But the interesting thing is it's also one of the most traveled, if not the most traveled, eclipsed 10 million visitors by vehicle last year. Now, the challenge there is that something like 500,000 people never go more than 500 yards off the road.
Yeah.
So just taking that time and just walking a few yards down the road and having a guide. I mean, I'm a big fan of guides. I think guides you can walk right past things. There's a photograph over your shoulder as we're talking here. And what I see is this incredible bit of light that's coming through the clouds and just hitting the side of the horse and grazing the edge of that hat that I'm assuming that's your wife, and maybe touching the edge of a dress. And, there's these great shadows and you got a handsome family, but I look at that and I see beautiful light, and you have to have somebody to teach you to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise you see a picture of a horse and 4 people.
and you just let it go right by. And I think what you're alluding to is one of the great lessons in life, not just personal, but also in business, the importance of having that guide or that coach or that person to slow you down for a minute and just say, hey, look, did you notice that light over there? I know when I used to travel a lot, and I'm a runner by trade, when I used to travel a lot, I always brought my running shoes because I wanted to run in the city that I traveled to because I got a chance to see it better from the ground. But you can smell the smells and hear the sounds as opposed to being in your car. And it's a little bit about what you're talking about is if you really want to learn, get out and see the world for what it is. And that's almost a cliche to say the world, but look at your surroundings and what value it brings back.
I'm starting to sound like a creative here. I'm actually like a business guy, but I do love creativity and I value art. One of the other techniques that I've used, I'd encourage everybody to do this. And I know your next step is to say, but I can't draw. Well, neither can I. But if you'll go to a museum, so I can remember going to, I don't even remember which museum it was in Italy, in one of those beautiful brown-walled towns and next to a Duomo, and looking at a piece of sculpture and sitting down with a small book I was carrying, kind of like a journal. And I just sat in front of this one sculpture that got my attention, and I tried to sketch, because I'm not a good artist, but I just sketched the lines and the way the sculptor had crafted the pose of the subject, and just drawing those lines. And literally I was using arrows, going, oh, the light's going this way, and the arms going this way, and the legs going this way, and the torso that way, and the eyes this way. And it looked probably more like an engineering drawing or a study than a piece of art that anybody would ever frame. But by sitting down in front of that sculpture for probably 30, 45 minutes, I saw it in a way that I never did. That's like running, Get out. I love planes. They can get me a far away fast, but then slow down, walk, run. This is we should be working for Under Armour or something here. Somebody with running shoes but I think that to try to offer some insights that maybe are more practical for business. And I'm a sales and marketing guy, so I spend my time coaching and guiding and working with executive teams of typically emerging middle market businesses. So they're businesses, they're at a time where what worked in the past isn't really working anymore. And having a framework is usually the thing that I can add to a person's business that really gives them insight. My personal experience is most people don't understand. Well, a lot of people don't respect marketing, but most people don't understand it. Therefore, the respect is really a function of a lack of understanding. And there's all kinds of things in life that point to the needs of framework. So, okay, here's a spin. Do you happen to ride motorcycles?
I do.
Okay. So if I say counter steer, you know what I mean.
Yep.
And anybody who doesn't ride is like, okay, I don't know where you're going here, but the process of learning how to ride a motorcycle in the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, they teach there's a series of processes that you go through. And as you approach a turn, you roll off the throttle. As you get closer to the turn, you begin to push, interestingly enough, the right side of the handlebar. Everybody thinks and intuitively you think you kind of twist the handlebar the other way. And that counter steering creates instability, and the motorcycle then leans into that instability because of the momentum and forward thrust, etc. So you rolled off, you've created instability, the bike's leaning into that angle, you go through the apex of the turn, you start to roll on the throttle, you pull off that counter steer. And they taught us to break down going through a corner on a motorcycle by understanding a series of steps. Now, I'd ridden a road bike a million times, not a motorcycle, but pedal. And I realized in this class that it was something I was doing on that bicycle. And I just nobody ever taught me that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. Because if you try to steer a bike into a turn the way you logically would think about it, you go the other way.
Yeah.
You go the wrong way. So understanding how to break down a problem and using a system and having a philosophy of steering in this case, or in marketing and sales, understanding how people change behavior, that became a revolutionary part of my life. So I think having a guide that can teach a framework, it's not that I know marketing better. I mean, I do think about it a lot, so I know a lot about it, but it's really the application of framework that makes me any good at what I do, makes me repeatable at what I do. So it's okay. Is everybody falling asleep? 'Cause this is a late night. I get excited about this stuff, but it's wonky.
Well, what's interesting, you're talking about that turn on the bike. Oftentimes you can mess that up if you're looking in the wrong direction, if you've become distracted. Right. And I've raced off-road cars for 13 years for Ford Motor Company. And when you're going in to set up a turn, it's exactly like what you said. It's not what you think it is, or you're not doing what you're inclined to do. It's almost counterintuitive, but that's what gets you around the turn. But when you take your eye off of the formula, if you will, next thing you know, you're off in a ditch upside down going, what happened? And that happens so often in business. I talk about writing a business plan, having your values, and staying true to who you are. And you consult with somebody like, well, what happened to your plan? Because clearly you're not following it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, in 2002, I faced a chronic illness and went from running marathons. I appreciate that. And Jim, I had an odd experience and journey through that. When I was running, I always felt led to thank God for the act of running, for each step. And I had great insight on that with some perspective, kind of like that wreck, right? When you look back, I realized now that I was being prompted to praise God for the ability to run. It was really cool, the motion of running. I can't run anymore because of this illness, but I'm doing great. I'm super, thanks for asking. But the journey of that led me to read. A friend gave me this book, and gets really wonky. The Transtheoretical Theorem of Behavioral Change. So what I'm going to call it is centricity for ease sake. But centricity teaches us that there is a common way that we all go through change. And before the recording started, Jim, you talked about a faith basis and a belief system. So not only does the Transtheoretical Theorem of Behavioral Change point to this process